Transformative Leadership, a critical reflection of my learning journey by Leslie Ann Flynn. In this presentation, I will examine what transformative leadership is. I will identify the needs and challenges within my context. I will discuss my leadership identity and offer some personal reflection on my learning throughout this module. And finally, I will look to the future with what next. So what is transformative leadership? Transformative leadership is an exercise of power and authority that begins with questions of justice, democracy, and the dialect between individual accountability and social responsibility. Transformative leadership has 4 primary orienteering concepts summarized as ways of being, relating, knowing, and doing. They serve as a broad framework through which to interpret and guide changes towards a better world, a world that is beyond post. And it can also be said that transformative leadership takes the notion of invented social reality further and draws on critical theories of culture and social reproduction, and concepts of leadership for social justice to help leaders understand how to create educational organisations that combine excellence with equity, inclusion, and justice. So what are some of the needs and challenges that I have identified in my own context? In my centre, we have recently had a change of leadership, with both the principal and deputy being new to leadership roles. With no prior experience, this has led to a feeling of there being no clear vision for our centre. A feeling of every decision being reactive instead of proactive. We are putting out fires at every turn, leading to a very anxious and overwhelming environment for staff, and then ultimately for students, as we are the conduit to their experience. There is now a feeling that there is no growth and almost a sense of going backwards. This has led to a downturn in the staff morale and their sense of belonging and inclusion. There's no staff voice, suggestions being put forward, but no one is listening. Opportunities to elicit change are becoming fewer and further between. Because we are reactive, there is duplication of work, which leads to an increasing workload. This could be attributed to the new leadership style. Based on the literature, it would appear that we now have one leader who favours a commanding style, and the other appears to be very much a pace setter. This is in contrast to the previous management style, where we had a principal that was a visionary and a pace setter, but also tried to be democratic and coaching. So very much a mix. This was complemented by a deputy who favoured an affiliative style of leadership. These leaders guided us through the ups and downs, including COVID. In contrast, it now feels strides that were made by previous management are now taking a back seat. So let's examine my leadership identity. It is suggested that identity is important for leaders because it grounds them in understanding who they are, their major goals and objectives, and their personal strengths and limitations. Now, from my learning throughout the course and examining the material provided to us, the concept of ethical leadership is the one that spoke to me the most and jumped out at me. So let's examine ethical leadership. There are 5 principles of ethical leadership: respect, honesty, service, justice, and community. Ethical leaders are understood as fair, sincere, upright, and honest. Ethical leaders demonstrate integrity and concern and care for others in their personal and professional lives. Reflecting upon my learning based upon this module and using models such as Gibb, or in this case, Cobb's reflective cycle, that I use in my daily practice, I began to wonder what was the root cause of the needs and challenges in my context, and how could I elicit change in relation to these challenges with my newfound transformative lens. So, having considered the root causes, it could be argued that authentic leadership is the basis of the challenges we are now facing. As authentic leaderships are deeply aware of how they think and behave, and are perceived by others as aware of their own and others' values, moral perspectives, knowledge, and the strengths, aware of the context within which they operate, and who are confident, hopeful, optimistic, resilient, and of high moral character. So, with new management having been placed in a role, our current inexperienced leaders have adopted a leadership persona they feel they are expected to portray, as opposed to being authentic leaders and being true to their own beliefs, values, and morals. So how could we remedy this situation? In my opinion, staff meetings should be held in a timely fashion to allow staff really think and consider what is being put to them, as opposed to feeling rushed. Ask for genuine staff input through multiple forms, such as surveys, focus groups, subcommittees. Actually listen and act upon staff feedback. And finally, lead the way they would have liked to be led and not how they think they should lead. This is not to argue that every leader should be a paragon, but rather that their actions should be seen to be ethically based, value-driven, and morally consistent. So, looking at developing my own leadership competencies, the theory of ethical and authentic leadership is at the forefront of my mind. I want to develop my ethical practice by building relationships and communication. Building relationships based on respect, which is a key pillar of ethical leadership. Integrity. It can be said that the best leaders model behaviours and attitudes that they want to see in their followers. And authenticity. Staying true to myself, my beliefs, my morals, and my values. Because, as Godden states, transformational leaders don't start by denying the world around them. Instead, they describe a future they would like to create instead, something I endeavour to achieve.